Hi, I'm Heather.
And I'm Haley.
And we're the Dunnit Sisters, a Kansas City true crime podcast. For this episode, we went to Great Bend, Kansas. On September 4th, 2002, at the Dolly Madison Bakery, Mandi Alexander, who had just been working there for 3 days, and Mary Drake, who was a customer, were both murdered. We spoke with Mandi's sister, and she told us about Mandi and what happened on the day of the double homicide.
Who was your sister? What did she like? What was she into?
I'm 13 years older than her, so I remember Mandi, the little Mandi. When my stepmom was pregnant, she wanted to name her Heather Rose. And I'm like, don't name her that. That name is so ugly. And she's like, telling me why. She goes, Heather Rose is a flower, and our last name is Sunderland. She's like, so the sun and the land. I'm like, oh my God, Karen, please. That is so ugly. So one day, the song Mandi came on the radio, and she's like, I like that song. I said, well, why don't you name her Mandi? And, you know, in that song it says, you came and you gave without taking. That was Mandi.
Well, you came and you gave without taking, but I sent you away, oh man.
She came and she gave. She gave my sister kids, because when she died, my sister adopted the oldest, and then because the youngest had so much medical problems, they decided just to get permanent guardianship of her. So that's how I remember Mandi, you know. But she loved her kids. Being 13 years older than her, I had my own life going on, my own kids. And, but Mandi, like I said, she loved her kids, and I have no idea who or why they would want to do this. And I didn't speak on this until her 20th year, but I hold so much guilt with Mary, because I know it wasn't Mary they were after. It was Mandi, and I should have been there more for Mandi. I should have been there to, guide her and teach her and show her the ins and outs, because sometimes as kids we don't always hear our parents. Even though the word may be the same, we hear it when somebody else tells us. And I feel that should have been me. So I hold so much guilt with Mary. And I'm so sorry that happened to her. And then to have to, I've told every single one of my nieces their mom wasn't coming home. So I don't live with just grief and the loss of my sister. I live with those screams, those cries, the unanswered questions, and longing for answers, the pain. And it doesn't, everybody says acceptance or closure. I'm sorry, everybody says it'll be closure for you to have some answers. It's never closure. It's acceptance, and you adapt, So when Alicia put that article out in the paper on the 20th, Mary's granddaughter, I was so glad to see that, because nobody had ever on the Drake side spoke up until then, because Mary's son wouldn't have nothing to do with the media. And so finally Mary had a voice, and I was so proud of Alicia, her granddaughter, for doing that, because when we got to see a piece of who Mary was. And that's when I spoke out the first time about the guilt for Mary that I hold. And like I started telling you guys, she was so naive and so skittish. She just didn't have no backbone, no strength. But she loved life. I mean, she loved having fun. She was just a little sister, you know, the pain in the butt. And then when she had her kids and was starting her life, you know, and then to have all that ripped away from you. And when she had Kirsten, one with the disabilities, my sister, when she got that job, she had my sister babysitting because my sister had a daycare. So my sister had her kids from that night on and then with Kirsten's disabilities, she wasn't even supposed to live to be 5 because she had a very rare brain disorder. The left side of her brain was completely smooth. She's never walked, talked. She never tasted food. She had grand mal seizures, and so they had to shut down 75% of the left side of the brain that was working to stop the seizures. So my sisters had those kids from that night forward. But Dolly Madison did they did pay for the funerals, and they did give the girls, my nieces, $20,000 each. Brianna got the oldest one got her money. And poor little old Kirsten, the disabled one, her dad was in jail, and he fought for his part. He got his $10,000, and Kirsten's $10,000 went towards the van that they got for her, and the wheelchair ramp put on it, lift, I should say. So
That was nice.
yeah,
This is just, I can't believe he took some of that.
he took his half. My poor dad. I can't imagine what it'd be like to lose two kids. And my stepmom. My stepmom lost both hers too, Mandi and her son. Can you imagine losing both your kids? She had a son before my dad, and then she had Mandi with my dad. But my dad lost 2, and my stepmom lost 2. And, you know, they say that you're supposed to go before your kids, and my dad took it real hard. And she died, my stepmom, this year, before the documentary was done. And I know that she would have been so proud to see it, because she was so glad somebody finally was interested in doing something.
Okay, so for our part of it, can you give us a chronological order of the stories for us to use? Is that okay?
I'll try. My memory is so bad from my PTSD because 4 years before her, my first sister was killed in a car wreck, and I found her brains on the highway. 2 years after Mandi, my oldest daughter was stabbed 13 times outside of McGraw's bar in Hutchinson. She lived, but she's not right in the head. It was my sister's 3rd day of work. I didn't even know she worked there, and I heard it on the news. 2 minutes later, the phone rang.
You heard it on the news?
Yes, I did.
That's how you found out?
But I didn't know it was her because I didn't know she worked there.
Same with your parents? How'd your parents find out?
She didn't come home because my sister had her kids.
But they didn't find out because of the news, too.
So
they kind of knew something was up.
When she didn't come home from work, my sister or her husband got a hold of my dad, and Karen's my stepmom, and my dad went up there, I guess, and saw the commotion, and then called my sister. My sister didn't call me till after 10, because 2 minutes after the phone rang, it was my sister. And from 11 o'clock till noon the next day, I was not going to leave until I saw the ambulance leave, because I knew that was the last time I was going to see my sister. Okay, how they found out was one of the drivers for Dolly Madison wasn't even supposed to stop there that night, but because he had so many empty racks in his truck, he decided to go ahead and stop and unload the empty racks and went in. And when he went in, he found them on the floor.
In the main area?
In the office, I think it was. And you know, with their throat being slashed, at least Mandi's, that there's going to be a pool of blood.
Right.
I sat on the curb the night this happened from 11, a little after 11, drove from Hutchinson, got here a little after 11, and watched people go in and out and in and out and in and out. I can't, countless number of times. And I knew from that point on that case was, if it ever got solved, it'd be a miracle. Because that door should have been shut and locked. And then to find out that head of KBI and head of police department in Great Bend were in Missouri that night. So it took them 6 hours to get here. So who was managing the crime scene? Because apparently nobody, because people kept going in and out. And they probably contaminated the crime scene or messed up some evidence, or there's a lot to this case, more than people realize. It's confusing. It's complicated. And I've been told by other law enforcement people from other agencies in other counties that I either know personally, I've asked, them, or they've told me on their own that they know who did it. But they probably won't be able to solve it.
They need that one little bit, maybe?
No evidence. It's either contaminated or gone, or just like the pin drop of blood that's new evidence. They can't even run DNA on. That's what they said on the 20th. Regular DNA test, it's only a YSTR, which is a male gender, and they have to have a specific person to run it against, because they cannot, there's not enough blood there to run it through a regular DNA panel, I guess, and run it through CODIS.
They can't match it up to, like, your ancestry or things like that. They would actually have to get a relative of the person.
Or him.
To get a match.
And did you tell us if you heard the reasoning behind it?
Don't know.
You don't know. You haven't heard.
I have no idea. I was told by a detective who I know personally years ago. The reason why they don't have any evidence is because, or don't really have any evidence, is because they don't have they don't have just one fingerprint. They have hundreds of fingerprints because it was a place of business. And not everybody is in the system that they can check the fingerprints and compare them to, That's part of the problem, and there was no surveillance cameras. There was a witness, but poor Miss Drake. And we got the both autopsy reports sent to us anonymously in the mail. So we know also what happened to Mary, not just Mandi.
Do you want to share what happened?
Yeah.
Okay.
Her throat was slit till the only thing holding her head on was her spinal cord. I have the autopsy report in my room. There was defensive wounds on both hands. Bruising, of course. I think there was 5 on one hand, 7 on the other hand, and then all the bruising. But after I saw her laying in a casket like that, I just kept thinking, I hope you at least got in one good lick, Mandi, because I'll never forget that. I'll never forget what a dead body feels like. And just to see that saran wrap and gauze wrapped around her neck like that, it was shocking. Not even the funeral home warned us. Nobody. Didn't ask us to bring a scarf or nothing. And I know with my first sister, because she was ejected out of her vehicle and then ran over by a third car, part of her head was missing, so they asked us to bring a scarf to cover her head with. And I would have thought that, they wouldn't want the family to see that, I mean, they've never found her keys.
Because they used it to lock the door.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
No
sorry.
keys, no weapon.
When they had said that robbery wouldn't have been the main motive.
I was told there was only $30-something taken, but the guy that did the documentary said it was like 112, 100 and something.
Okay. I've never seen any mention of the money. I just know that I thought I had read, and I can't find it again, that they had left Mary's purse on the counter untouched, and if it had been truly like getting money, they would have grabbed that. Did they take Mandi's purse?
I don't know if she even had a purse there. I know that some of her jewelry that she had on never made it. It was never given back to my dad or my stepmom.
Jewelry wasn't given back, but not taken.
We don't know.
Don't know. Her keys would have been in her pocket?
I'm not even sure. My dad couldn't even drive her car home because he had to wait till he got a key made.
I'm curious, though, how he knew which one was the key. I don't think he'd sit there test him. Or unless, I wouldn't have thought she had a key on her. I wouldn't have.
Yeah, he locked up.
Yeah.
He locked the door. That's how they got the composite drawing. Somebody seen him lock the door.
Locking the door and walking off. Which means he had to know where the keys were.
And he had to have cleaned up inside.
I don't know.
And a guy was staying in the motel that's right behind the Dolly Madison Bakery. There was a guy staying there who had shaved his head the night she was killed. And why would he do that?
Because he looks like the sketch?
I don't know. And then the cops gave him a ride to the edge of town because he was a transient after he cut his hair. I don't know what the deal was with that it was such a big issue, but that is one thing that we did find out. I'm not sure how that came about, but my stepmom somehow knew about it. But it wasn't random and transient. They can tell me that till I'm blue in the face, and I know what happened to her. She had to. They cut her head off. The only thing holding her head on was her spinal cord. And they tried to tell me it was random and transient. It wasn't random and transient. You don't take the time to cut somebody's head off, and only a little bit of money was taken, okay?
That's what I was thinking.
If you're going to rob someplace, at that time you could literally buy 3 loaves of bread for $1 and 10 snack cakes for $1. I don't think I'm going to rob a day old bakery. I think I'm going to go across the street where there's a bank. Right next door is a smoke shop. Behind that's a motel. Across the street from that, Cattywampus is another motel. Cattywampus this way is a McDonald's. I don't think I'm going to rob a day old bread store.
Yeah, they don't have a lot of cash on them.
And didn't they leave the woman's purse on the counter?
And they left the woman's purse on the counter.
Do you know I undressed her in her coffin? Yes, I did. At her viewing, I saw a saran wrap wrapped around her neck. Under that was some gauze. And I was like, what the? So I knew immediately that I was going to hide. After everything was over, I was going to hide in the bathroom. And I did. When I thought everybody was gone, I went out and checked the funeral home, went out and checked the parking lot because I didn't want somebody coming back in on me. Went back in the funeral home, checked the funeral home again, went in the viewing room, shut the door and locked it, and I undressed her in her coffin. Because I had to know. Because they weren't telling us nothing. And still to this day have never told us anything. And hardly ever talked to us. And they say, well, when the KBI interviewed me, you know, they were asking me about a drug case, and I'm like, a drug case? Yeah, supposedly she was supposed to testify against somebody in a case, but they couldn't find any county in Kansas, in nowhere, where Mandi's name was on there to testify. So after thinking about it for years, and I'm like, well, I wonder if it was feds then. Did they check the federal side? And, you know, I never remember to ask him that, but that would be my only thing.
I'm sorry.
And I'm thinking, Mandi was so sheltered, she couldn't even drive herself from Great Bend to Hutchinson to my house. Either I had to go get her or my kids and then take her home, you know. And I'm like thinking, she's not strong enough of a person to do that. And I still am at awe. I just don't see her even being in that life, and I guess she was, according to my stepmom. But then her friend tells me that Mandi was never, but I'm just confused. Either way, you know? I'm just baffled by that. So that was one thing they asked me. They asked me if I knew anybody, you know, that would want to hurt her. Her ex-husband denied a polygraph test for a year, I think it was like a year and a half. And why? If your baby mama was killed, wouldn't you want to help find who killed your daughter's mom? If you have nothing to hide? But because his attorney said that a polygraph isn't admissible in a court of law, you're right, it's not. But if you have nothing to hide, why deny? And especially if they keep coming and asking. So,
Do you feel like he was involved?
I don't know. I know they were going through a custody battle. The guy that told me who did it, when I called KBI and told him just a couple days before the 20th, he told me the reason why is because Mandi was supposed to testify in this drug case, okay? It came from higher up to tell Mandi not to testify, so they did. Well, when they found out that she was going to testify anyway, that's when the hit was put out. So I said, it is true, Mandi was to testify, but I don't know. It's bizarre.
Right. I don't. Were other people supposed to testify too? Don't know.
I have no
it would
idea.
definitely send a
I'm
message.
telling you, I was so shocked by that.
Right.
You think they would have asked her friends that question, you know, someone like...
My sister didn't really have a whole lot of friends. She had Kathy, and Kathy's the one that told me that she does not think that Mandi was in the drug life, but why would my stepmom say she was? I was her daughter. I don't like the way he treated me either, because I also got some information, like I told you earlier, about my friend giving me some information. And when I gave him the information, he wanted to know who it was that I was talking to, and I told him I couldn't tell him. The way he started yelling at me, I was almost afraid to come home, because I was at a friend's house, I was almost afraid to come home because I didn't know if he was going to come knocking on my door harassing me the way he was yelling at me. And I can't tell him. I can't.
The one they say he did it, is he still in the area?
No, he's in prison for murder. Because I asked him I called a couple days later and asked him what he was doing with the information, and because I wouldn't tell him, he told me. Basically, the answer I got was nothing. They weren't going to do anything with the information I gave him.
We also wish to thank the public. The public has provided dozens, probably hundreds of tips and leads over the years, and we've done our best to run each and every one of those down, and we'll continue to do that. So we would ask for continued support from the public.
So I wonder, is that how you treat everybody? Because they won't tell you something that you want to know. You aren't going to look into the information then? That's how I feel, because that's what you told me. And then for him to turn around and say, that's not what I said. Yes, it is what you said. How does it feel to have somebody put words in your mouth if that isn't what you said? Because you guys do it to us all the time. But that is what you said.
Can we say that the KBI is sitting on information and isn't willing to investigate it?
I can tell you something else.
Wait, can we say that?
Yes, because I'm going to tell you something else that I know.
Go on now. I'm listening.
Let me talk, man.
She goes, shut up. Who's doing the interview here? Okay, go ahead.
There's a documentary getting ready to come out here shortly that I just participated in. I'm so mad at KBI. The night my sister was killed, the guy that's doing the documentary had spoke to somebody while he was back. I think the time that he was doing my interview and a couple others. He talked to somebody, and this person, I believe he said he was a teacher or worked at the school, something about the school. But they went out to eat that night, and somebody had told them about the Dolly Madison Bakery. So after they ate, they were going to they went to the Dolly Madison to get some snack cakes for dessert. Well, when they got there, the door was already locked. And it was about 6:30. Okay? So he's, kind of confused, why is it closed? Well, they left. Well, then the next day at school, he heard one of the kids saying, did you hear about what happened to Dolly Madison last night? And he popped his head up because, he was there, and he says, what happened, And, well, they were talking about the murders. So then he calls KBI to tell them that he was there, and they didn't want to talk to him, and they never did.
But they never interviewed him.
Nope.
And he contacted KBI.
Yep.
We also wish to thank the public. The public has provided dozens, probably hundreds of tips and leads over the years, and we've done our best to run each and every one of those down, and we'll continue to do that. So we would ask for continued support from the public. So if anyone has even the slightest detail that they feel is relevant to this case, we would ask them to share that by calling the case.
There's a friend of mine was going to do, if there was any DNA, he was going to pay and have it done where they could take the blood if there was any DNA and do where they take the DNA and they do a sketch of what the person looks like.
Yes, that's
Yeah,
I know what you're talking about. Yes, or something.
He was going to pay for that himself, but when he called Topeka, when he called whoever he called, he was told that there was a gag order on the case, so they really couldn't give him any information, blah, 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 blah. So, even people going to pay for it out of their own pocket? You know, he was going to raise the money somehow. They wouldn't even, you know, I mean, it's just, come on. I mean, after 20 years, you would think that they would be willing to do anything to get some answers, you know. I want it out of KBI's, out of Great Bend KBI's hand, this case so bad out of their hands, but I don't know how to do it. I don't know where to start, what to do, who to contact, who to call.
To get it to the FBI.
And then KBI, you know, when you call and ask him things, or I quit calling them. I just quit calling them. Because they treat you like you're dirt on their shoe. They're so cold. They're so short and shitty with their answers, and they act like they don't have time for you, and they're, you know. And I've expressed that before, and then, like I did it on the 20th for their news conference that they had, I let them have it. I told them I was mad at them, and I'm sick and tired of them treating us the way they do, and how they treat us like dirt on their shoe. And he's like, well, if you want to stay after the conference and talk to me about it, you can. Does no good. Does no good. They hear nothing you say. And I'm not asking them to give us a detail by detail by detail information. And like I told him on the 20th, I'd rather hear you say, I don't have anything new to tell you, but I just want you to know we're thinking about you. Your name is on our desk still. I'd rather hear that than to hear nothing at all. And then he says, oh, we've kept in touch with your mother over the years. I'm her daughter. Do you not think that I would know if you've kept in contact with her? Why would I say that if you did? I wouldn't accuse you of something you didn't do, because I know what that feels like. So no, you haven't kept in contact with anybody.
So that was a lie.
Yes.
I've been thinking about the reasons behind it, the motive, and she wasn't raped, and there wasn't really any money involved. The customer's purse was left. So if it wasn't robbery and it wasn't a rape case, then I can't figure out the motive.
No. And going with that, just thinking about the Richard Grissom one, he would do somewhat of a robbery, but he wouldn't necessarily know them. He would just go in and he would stab them. Like a psychopath, basically.
But he raped them, right?
Not all of them, but he did. I mean, he didn't. Joan Butler wasn't raped. It was the other two. So, but then I was thinking, unless there's somebody else with them, because I would think after killing two people as viciously as they were killed, that you would be a mess.
Mm-hmm.
And the person who saw the guy who came out of the store and locked it, he's not described as being bloody.
Yeah, that's weird.
Or there's no bloody footprints. Now, he could have cleaned up, and that's just not something that the police is letting us know. Like, oh, yeah, we could tell that they cleaned up in the bathroom.
But he had no bag, so
But he had no
unless
bags.
he went out back and threw stuff away.
Or there was another person involved.
Right.
Or you had mentioned that, or maybe that person didn't exist.
Right, maybe.
I mean, maybe they made up that.
Right.
They just wanted to get involved in it.
Get involved or cover something up. I don't know.
Right. I mean, it's just...
It's a
a lot of questions,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of unknowns, a lot of speculation, because obviously we don't know everything involved with this. And I understand why they don't want to tell us everything. But
And didn't you say something about there was a the witness, the man that they said was coming out and locked the door, they matched him up with someone recently?
No, it was like a year later, there was surveillance camera of someone who looked very similar to that. But from what I believe, he's been excluded. I mean, he was excluded.
They talked to him.
Right. And he did match the
description.
the description. He did. So
You mentioned also that there was someone that was heading to the store at, I don't know.
like an hour later, there's somebody who worked at the school had shown up and the door was locked. So
didn't someone tell them that it was closed?
No, that's the witness for the 5:45, 6 o'clock. They'd shown up and they witnessed someone leaving, locking it up and saying it was closed. And they're like, well, that's weird because it wouldn't be closed at such an odd time. So that person, assuming that person was the murderer, again, I mean, they weren't described as
disheveled,
right?
scared, in a hurry,
no,
bloody,
no
cuts
with a backpack because they have a change of clothes in it. No cuts on the hands
because the shoes would be jacked up, but they'd be so much,
right?
And I don't think there's probably a shower in there.
I would think not. I mean, I guess again they could have cleaned up in the bathroom, and cops don't want to tell us that. Or he cleaned up all that stuff, threw it out that back door, where you delivery door, and then it was coming out the front, locked it, and then made his way back around, grabbed the stuff, and then left. That's the only thing in my mind that would make sense, because that's also where the knife would be then, because unless he put it down his pants or something. But obviously the witness didn't describe someone with a bloody mess and a knife coming out the front door. Because that would be fabulous.
Seemed like unless there were two people.
Unless there are two people.
And they drove out the back or something.
Right. But then why? Why? She'd only been working there 3 days. So this story is just
bizarre.
It is. Which is...
So if anyone's heard something, I mean, this happened in 2002.
Right.
If you've heard anything, just come forward. Was there a reward?
$17,000. And there is DNA that it would have to be matched with the person who did it or a male family member. But, that's great. That's how you exclude people. So this family definitely needs answers.
It's time.
Mary's family would love to have answers too.
You could.
The KBI has it on their website. If anyone knows anything, just please come forward. And what's also fabulous is that we found out that there is going to be another podcast on this and a documentary. So this is great news. This is wonderful. I'm hoping that helps generate leads and information.
Right.
So thank you for watching. Please subscribe and please like, please share. And thank you for watching.
Thanks.
Bye.